I had a seizure on the plane. The first seizure I had, my homie walked up to me and said, "Let's get off the plane, man." They say, "You had a seizure." I say, "Man, stop lying."
Rick Ross stacked up a $1 million empire, but behind the Maybachs and mansions, his body was tapping out in silence. Seizures, a drive-by on his birthday, enemies blasting out darkest secrets like it was open season. The shine was blinding, but the danger was real, and it was closing in fast. The biggest boss almost lost it all. Money, status, even his heartbeat. What pulled him back from the edge? It wasn't what people expected, and that twist made the story even wilder. Here's the play-by-play. The boss who almost flatlined became a warning and a blueprint at the same time. No fairy tales. When you hear Rick Ross, you picture the heavyweight aura, Maybachs, music, a lifestyle iced out from head to toe. That fantasy most people only see on screens came with shadows, pressure, and pain that didn't care about fame or followers. Under the champagne fizz and caviar flex, there was a battle going on that hit different. Real stakes, real fear, real survival. A man looked death dead in the face more than once, and somehow kept breathing long enough to flip the narrative. William Leonard Roberts II was born January 28, 1976 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, but the real grind stamped him in Carroll City, Florida. The trenches shaped the vision and the voice.
What's your proudest business venture?
Well, you know, I love everything I do. I can't even front. You know what I'm saying? Everything, I put my heart into it all. But my latest business venture, my Jet Doc, which is a health app.
That's where the mind sharpened and the focus turned lethal, building patience, swagger, and hunger out of struggle. Young William dreamed bigger than the block and refused to shrink to his circumstance. He ran plays on the field at Albany State University, stacking discipline before he ever touched a studio booth. Before the charts, he was clocking in, a 9-to-5 learning structure, staying locked in and plotting the level up with quiet moves and loud ambition. That same grind that built his name would later spark his biggest controversy. But we'll get to that heat soon. In 2006, everything flipped for real. Ross dropped Hustlin', and that track didn't just make noise. It shook the streets. It became the go-to anthem for everybody chasing their way out the mud. Every hustler fighting for a better life. The beat hit hard. The hook hit harder, and Miami's street soul got its soundtrack that year. Overnight, this larger-than-life figure with the thunderous voice was everywhere. Port of Miami, his debut album, didn't just drop, it exploded, hitting #1 on the Billboard 200. That move stamped Ross as a certified powerhouse in Southern hip-hop. The whole industry had to respect it, because the biggest boss had officially clocked in. But here's the wild part no one talks about. The same drive that makes legends can also be the thing that breaks them from the inside. While Ross was stacking wins and living that larger-than-life dream, his body was quietly waving red flags, begging for a pause. The late nights, stress, and constant grind started to eat away at him, piece by piece, but the success was too loud for anyone to notice.
I had a seizure on the plane. The first seizure I had, my homie walked up to me and said, "Let's get off the plane, man." They say, "You had a seizure." I say, "Man, stop lying."
Check this. When Ross opened up about it later, that pain came from somewhere deep. It wasn't fake. It wasn't for clout. It was raw truth. That kind of hurt makes you sit back and question every single move you ever made, every sacrifice, every loss. October 14th, 2011, a date that flipped Rick Ross's whole life upside down. While on the move, chasing shows and success, he got hit with something no fame could protect him from. 2 seizures in just 6 hours. The first one struck mid-flight from Fort Lauderdale to Memphis, and it was chaos in the sky. Imagine that. One of the biggest names in hip-hop, unconscious on a plane, while flight attendants rush in, giving CPR, fighting to bring him back to life. The plane had to make an emergency landing, and when they found him, he wasn't even responsive. It was that real. They literally had to pull him back from the edge. But here's the wild twist. Just when people thought he was stable, that he dodged the worst, boom! Another seizure hit him on a separate flight, sending him straight to a hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. 2 seizures, 6 hours, 1 day. That could have been the end of everything. No more tours, no more music, no more biggest boss. The craziest part? Ross had no memory of what happened. That's how disconnected he'd become from his own body. His grind had completely taken over, and his health was the price. At first, the doctors tried to call it exhaustion and lack of rest, but the truth ran darker than that. Later, Ross opened up and admitted what really made things worse: drug use. The same fast life that fueled the hits was the same one nearly shutting him down for good. 2 to 3 hours of sleep on a good night.
And most definitely, that's what's really driving me. The fact that I've had a seizure, and I woke up, from being unconscious on the toilet before, and I've never even spoke on this, but I suffered from seizures a long time. Like I said, I've deprived myself of rest, no sleep, maybe 2 to 3 hours on a good night. Staying up, chasing my dreams. I always thought I had the best excuses, but don't nothing come before life in itself.
Let that sink in for a second. That's not a grind. That's a slow breakdown in disguise. While Ross was out here building Maybach Music Group from the ground up, putting Meek Mill and Whale in position and dropping hit after hit, his body was running on fumes. He was pushing himself past the limit, sipping that lean, that codeine syrup, mixing it with other stuff, telling himself it was just part of the hustle, the price of being the boss, he thought. But that price was stacking up heavy behind the scenes. In his 2019 Hurricanes, a memoir, Ross finally kept it 100 about his codeine use. He revealed how deep it went, how he leaned on it to numb the stress, the drama, and the nonstop pressure from fame, business, and industry beefs. Add liquor to that mix, a few other substances, barely any sleep, and you've got a cocktail that could wreck even the strongest body. His system was begging for a timeout, but Ross kept saying, "I got this," when his body clearly didn't. That scare back in 2011, that wasn't the main event. That was just the warning shot. The real wake-up call came 7 years later, and this time it nearly ended everything. On March 2nd, 2018, around 3:34 in the morning, chaos broke out at Ross's Miami mansion. He was found unresponsive, not moving, not responding, just gone still. The 911 call that followed was straight chilling. The person on the line said Ross was breathing heavy, foaming at the mouth, and possibly losing control of his body. It was that serious. The biggest boss was on the edge again, and this time it looked like there might be no comeback.
When we got that call that morning, we were given misinformation. They was actually doing CPR at the time, and they had turned the airplane around in Atlanta. That was the wrong information that we got initially, and it was devastating. Because when you hear CPR, you know you're losing a person.
When the paramedics showed up, things got wild fast. Ross was disoriented and started fighting back. So much that they had to call for police backup just to get him to the hospital. At first, the word going around was that he had pneumonia. But once the real details dropped, it was clear this situation was way deeper. Reports started surfacing about a possible heart attack and that Ross had been placed on ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, basically life support when your heart and lungs can't do the job anymore. Let that sink in. ECMO, the biggest boss in hip-hop, lying there with machines keeping him alive. It was survival mode. No rap lyrics, no stage lights, no luxury, just life or death on everything. Rick Ross truly thought it was over for him. When he came to after one of those seizures and saw police around with weapons drawn, his mind went straight to the streets. He thought the ops had pulled up on him, and he was already gone, caught between this world and the next. That's how far gone his body and mind were, completely detached from reality. In that moment, being dead actually felt like it made sense to him. That's a whole different level of exhaustion, both mentally and physically. And it's proof that even a boss can hit the breaking point. And if you thought that was the end of the health scares, think again. In his upcoming 2026 memoir, Renaissance of a Boss, Notes from a Creative Reawakening, Ross opens up about another seizure that hit him in 2022. Proof that his battle with his own body still isn't over. This next episode, it was wild, caused by eating psychedelic mushrooms. Yeah, you heard that right. The trip went left fast and forced another emergency landing mid-air.
Ross and 50, right? Ross is not, they got a beef because 50 didn't say what up to him. That's just a New York thing.
Right.
At one of the awards. I wasn't there, but that's how it sparred.
Right.
Nigga ain't say what's up to me. Cause down south, y'all have more of a...
Yeah, hey, how you doing?
Ross later said it was one of the scariest moments of his life, linking it to the same health problems that had haunted him for years. He even joked that he was marauding through mushroom land like a Super Mario brother right before the seizure hit. But beneath the humor, it was clear. He wasn't grounded physically or mentally at that point. His mind and body were on two totally different frequencies. But yo, the story of Rick Ross's downfall ain't just about brushes with death. It's about a man who built an empire and almost threw it all away because he couldn't slow down. The grind that made him a boss also became his biggest enemy. The health scares, just one side of the chaos. While his body was breaking down, the outside world was plotting too. And they weren't playing fair. Ops, choppers, sneak attacks. Real danger was circling him like sharks. If the seizures and hospital beds weren't already enough, the universe wasn't done testing him. Ross got dragged into some of hip-hop's ugliest beefs and even found himself dodging real bullets. On January 28, 2013, his 37th birthday, things got deadly serious.
Well, this show and myself have had some beef with people over the years.
That's a good thing.
That happens when you speak your mind.
Right.
You've had some high-profile drama with people like 50 Cent, T.I., Nicki Minaj. Have you called a truce with any of these, and what lessons have you learned?
Ross was out celebrating another year of life when somebody decided that night should be his last. Shots erupted from another car, turning the celebration into a full-blown ambush. Ross, running on pure instinct, hit the gas and tried to escape in his Rolls-Royce, swerving through chaos. But in the madness, he lost control and crashed into an apartment building. Miraculously, neither Ross nor the woman riding with him were hurt physically, but mentally. That moment left a scar that no money, mansion, or Maybach could ever erase. Getting bullets aimed at you on your birthday? That messes with your head in ways money can't fix. The trauma doesn't fade, it lingers, sitting heavy on your mind every time you hear a loud pop or see a shadow move too quick. That 2013 drive-by wasn't random either. It came right after online death threats from the gangster disciples, who claimed Ross was disrespecting their symbols and demanded payment. Ross saw it for what it was, straight extortion, and made it clear he wasn't folding for anybody. After that, he brought in 24/7 security, moving like a fortress on wheels. But that moment made one thing clear. Living like the boss meant walking around with a target on your back. Every flash, every chain, every Maybach ride came with risk. The street heat, mixed with the fame pressure, created a storm he couldn't escape. The violence, the threats, the constant tension. It all stacked on top of his health problems, making everything worse. Stress fueled the substances. The substances damaged his health, and the health scares created even more stress. A cycle that never seemed to stop spinning.
How did you feel about having other people calling themselves the same name as yours?
That's like a double-edged sword, right? You kind of feel flattered, you know, that somebody thought enough of you to name themselves after you. And then I was in prison when I first heard, so it was kind of disrespectful because I said, well, you know what, he could have reached out and asked me.
And speaking of tension, we got to talk about the war that defined a whole era of hip-hop. This one's legendary. Rick Ross versus 50 Cent. Tony Yayo once broke it down, saying the entire feud sparked off a single moment. A disrespectful look Ross gave at the 2008 BT Awards was all it took to light the fuse on one of the game's longest-running rivalries. 15 years deep and still throwing shade. In January 2009, Ross fired the first lyrical shot with Mafia music, calling out 50 Cent's messy child support drama, and even referencing the house fire that involved his baby mama. That one track set the tone for a feud that would get pettier, louder, and more personal with every passing year. 50 Cent clapped back with pure chaos, dropping Officer Ricky, Go Ahead, Try Me. And that track didn't just sting, it blew up Ross's whole image. The diss hit deeper than a song. It exposed a part of Ross's past that would follow him for years. Turns out before the biggest boss ever touched a mic, William Roberts had clocked in as a correctional officer from 1995 to 1997.
So when you hear those type of stories, it just kind of make you feel like, you know, what's with this guy? You know, why can't this guy just come out and say,
be honest.
You know, what I am and what I do. And then the way he raps too, you know, he raps about selling drugs.
Right.
And he never sold drugs. You know, he was a correctional officer, had a credit card in high school.
In a culture that worships street credibility like currency, that revelation was a major blow. This wasn't just rap beef anymore. It was character assassination in real time. 50 didn't stop with bars. He went for theatrics. He dropped Officer Ricky cartoons online, mocking Ross and turning him into a punchline across the internet. But 50 wasn't done scheming. He turned the feud into a personal war. He brought in Tia Kemp, one of Ross's baby mamas, sat her down for an interview, and let her air Ross out on camera. The disrespect was wild. Then came what's still considered one of the dirtiest moves in hip-hop history. 50 Cent leaked a private tape involving Lastonia Leviston, another one of Ross's baby mamas, and even added his own commentary to humiliate Ross publicly. It wasn't just petty, it was vicious, designed to break him. But karma spun the block hard. In 2015, a jury ordered 50 to pay $7 million, $5 million in damages, and another $2 million in penalties for leaking that tape, a hit so heavy it played a role in his bankruptcy filing. Still, back when it happened, the blow to Ross's rep was serious. It painted him as fake in an industry built on authenticity. Even with all that heat, Ross stayed cool in public, handling it like a boss when he spoke on The View. But behind the scenes, those scars cut deep. That feud left marks that not even millions could hide. Even in 2025, the smoke between Rick Ross and 50 Cent was still burning. Ross couldn't resist throwing fresh shots, even offering to buy 50's masters just to flex. He even brought up 50's late mother while posting from his massive ranch, New Life. In 2023, 50 clowned the weak sales of Ross and Meek Mill's collab album Too Good to Be True, laughing about their numbers online. Then in 2024, during the huge Drake versus Kendrick Lamar drama, Ross found himself dragged right back into the mix, tossing little jabs while 50 threw his usual shade. These two just couldn't let it die. But let's keep it real, 50 Cent wasn't the only storm Ross had to face. Another major controversy came from the real Freeway Ricky Ross, the former Los Angeles drug kingpin who made millions during the 1980s crack era. The rapper had taken his name and image inspiration straight from him, and when the original Freeway Ricky got out of prison in 2009, he wasn't having it. He filed a $10 million trademark lawsuit against the rapper, claiming Ross built fame off his life story. It turned into a major courtroom showdown, the streets versus the stage. But by 2014, the California Court of Appeals sided with the rapper, ruling that his stage name was protected under the First Amendment as artistic expression. Ross walked away legally cleared, but the debate over who the real Rick Ross is still hangs heavy in hip-hop to this day. The rapper didn't just walk away from that lawsuit. He flipped the script and hit Freeway Ricky Ross with a counterclaim, winning $10 million in damages. But even with that W, the fire didn't cool down. By early 2025, the real Freeway Ricky Ross was back in the headlines, publicly calling himself the real Ross and taking shots all over again.
This is Men's Health Month, and I know you in the past have talked a lot about taking control of your health. You've lost weight, you look good. You were up to 350 at one point, right?
I was.
What does a healthy Rick Ross look like? How are you taking control of your health right now?
Well, it's just really, for me, it's all about your diet. You know, and a lot of times I break the rules.
It was clear that name would always carry tension, no matter how many court cases or checks got signed. But the legal chaos didn't stop there. Ross's record over the years got messy. Gun and weed charges in 2008, another weed bust in Louisiana in 2011, then a marijuana warrant out of North Carolina in 2014. But it was the 2015 Georgia case that really had jaws dropping. Kidnapping and assault charges that could have taken him off the map for years. In the end, Ross pled no contest to aggravated assault in 2017, dodging the worst but still walking away with another heavy chapter added to his story. Then came the kind of loss that no court could prepare him for. In December 2017, tragedy hit close. Ross's day one manager and longtime friend, Nadrian Blackbow James, passed away at just 45 years old from atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. He was found unresponsive at Ross's own home after a night of celebrating, and Ross himself realized something was wrong with his brother in grind. The heartbreak was real. Ross went online and poured his emotions out, posting a raw tribute that showed just how deep that pain ran. This was the man who had beaten his own health scares, now standing over the loss of someone who'd been right beside him through it all. The irony cut deep. Heart disease taking another life in a circle already haunted by it. And that's the part most people don't truly see. The toll behind the fame, the endless beefs that drain your mind, the street pressure that keeps you watching your back, the courtrooms, the chaos, and then the loss of the people who actually matter. That's the hidden cost of the boss life, the pain that money can't fix. Chaos, pain, and near-death moments, Rick Ross never stayed down. That boss mentality, it wouldn't let him quit. The man turned every breakdown into a comeback, proving that a real boss doesn't just survive, he evolves. What separates Ross from so many others who face the same demons is simple. He's still standing, not just scraping by, but thriving. By 2025, Ross had completely flipped his lifestyle. He dropped between 75 to 100 pounds, and not because of surgery or some trendy diet plan. Nah, he did it the real way, through discipline, consistency, and pure willpower. The man who once weighed in at 350 pounds started putting in work, eating better, moving more, and treating his body like it was part of his empire. That's growth, straight up. He didn't just want to look good, he wanted to live. That hit different when you know what he's been through, when you've seen him fight for his life time after time. Ross even said it best himself. If you want to tap out early and everybody puts your t-shirt on, just don't do nothing. That's not just about fitness. That's a whole sermon on life and mortality. He's talking about those RIP shirts we've all seen, about the friends who never made it, about standing too close to the edge himself and realizing how fragile everything really is. Ross could have been another face on a memorial tee, but instead, he became a walking reminder that you can rewrite your own story, even when the odds are stacked sky high against you. They can't zip rosé up in a bag. That line says it all. That's a man who's made peace with death, but still decided it's not his time yet. No cap. Ross faced his own mortality and came out swinging with a new mindset, a sharper vision, and a hunger for legacy, survival, and elevation, living proof that pain can turn into power. And you can see that transformation in his business moves. Let's be real. Ross has been stacking wins since 2008 when he founded Maybach Music Group and built it into a powerhouse. He gave platforms to heavy hitters like Meek Mill, Whale, and Gunplay, showing he wasn't just chasing hits, he was creating an empire. But the boss moves didn't stop with music. Ross flipped his hustle into a full-on business dynasty. The same man who almost lost his life from ignoring his health is now cashing out from healthcare investments. That's growth on a whole new level. His business bag runs deep. Wingstop franchises, Bel Air Rosé Champagne, Wrap Snacks, and Seizure, all adding up to a net worth pushing over $90 million. That's not just a comeback, that's domination with purpose. And musically, Ross never lost his flame. With more than a dozen albums under his belt, he stayed consistent, from Port of Miami 2 in 2019, which debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, to his 2023 collab with Meek Mill, Too Good to Be True. Even nearing 50, Ross stays relevant in a game that...
Exactly, that's just me following my heart.
Then, on December 16, 2025, Ross announced his third book, The Renaissance of a Boss, Notes from a Creative Reawakening, set to drop May 12, 2026. The book takes fans on a wild cross-country journey, a spiritual and creative rebirth. From visiting Elvis Presley's Graceland to joining a Native American sweat lodge ceremony, Ross reflects on his life, his mistakes, and his evolution. A boss truly reborn, chasing meaning instead of just money. Ross called his new book a manual for greatness, saying, "I'm cutting out the noise and showing you that when you execute with precision, success is too easy." That line sums up the entire Ross mentality. Bold, confident, and laser-focused. But here's the twist. That same hunger, that non-stop drive for more, was the very thing that almost killed him. Still, it's also what pulled him back from the edge. Facts. The same fire that once burned him down ended up being the thing that rebuilt him stronger. When Ross decided to put that energy into healing instead of just hustling, everything changed. He turned near death into motivation, using that boss mindset to recover, focus on health, and build real businesses that could outlive him. That's what makes his comeback legendary. He didn't just survive, he evolved. But the chaos surrounding his health was so intense that it blurred the line between life and rumor. Ross has been hit with death hoaxes more than once, especially during his 2018 hospitalization when everyone thought he was gone for real.
It's a lot more for us to accomplish. When you want to be great, you want to be great. It's really not a ceiling. You know, it's like when you coming up in Carol City, your dream is just to be a millionaire. You know, you get your first one, you want 10, you get 10, you want 100, you get 100, you already know it.
Yeah.
It don't.
Even years later, people on Reddit in 2024 were still asking if Rick Ross was alive. That's how wild his story got. The roller coaster of his health battles created this mythic storyline. A man too big to fall, yet always one breath away from tragedy. Fans couldn't look away because every chapter felt like it might be his last. But time and again, Ross proved the world wrong. And now, here we are, 2026, and Rick Ross is still alive, breathing heavy inspiration into the game. The biggest boss didn't just survive, he leveled up in every way. He's still moving strong in music, stacking business plays with those Wingstop franchises, building brands, and giving back to his people. The same man who once lived recklessly now lives with purpose. And that switch up is powerful. Ross often talks about how those near-death moments forced him to change everything. He went from sipping lean in the studio till sunrise to actually catching real sleep, hitting the gym, and thinking about every single thing he puts into his body. That discipline turned into a lifestyle, not for show, but for survival. He didn't just heal himself. He started a conversation the whole culture needed. Ross became one of hip-hop's loudest voices for health awareness, a space that usually glorifies excess and self-destruction. By keeping it real about his own struggles, he gave other artists the courage to talk about theirs. That honesty hit home for a lot of people, especially those caught up in the same cycle of grind and self-neglect. From battling scandals and beefs to getting a street named after him in his hometown of Clarksdale, Mississippi, Ross's journey screams resilience, purpose, and turned every L into legacy. He influenced fashion, culture, business, and helped launch a whole new generation of artists worldwide. So when people ask, what's the tragic fate of Rick Ross? The answer hits different. It's not death and it's not destruction. It's the story of a man who had every obstacle stacked against him. His health, his habits, his enemies, the industry politics, and still refused to let any of it write his ending. Now that's what real boss energy looks like. The real tragic fate of Rick Ross isn't death. It's that he had to almost flatline more than once just to learn how to truly live. He had to feel his own body shutting down, stare down gun barrels on his birthday, survive beefs that dragged on for decades, and bury people who once stood beside him through everything. He touched the lowest levels of pain a human can feel, physically, mentally, and spiritually. But the beautiful part? He's still here, still writing his story, one boss move at a time. Every album, every business play, every morning Ross wakes up and chooses peace over chaos. That's victory right there. That's him rewriting his fate, because the biggest boss move of all time isn't about the mansions, the Maybachs, or the millions. It's about survival. It's about growth. It's about refusing to let pain define your purpose. Rick Ross turned his tragedies into trophies and his losses into lessons, showing that where you come from doesn't control where you can go next. The boss is still standing, stronger, smarter, and more self-aware than ever before. That's the realest flex of them all. If you vibed with this story, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. What do you think is Rick Ross's biggest comeback moment? Your support keeps this energy going.